Hello everyone. This is Music Mukbang. My name is Zoe, and today, for the second time, we are talking to Stillharley. Hello, how are you?
What's up, y'all? Good, good. How are you? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you just came out with another album or tape. How do we want to call it?
I guess like a tape. I
A
don't really
tape?
want to call it an album yet. Yeah, kind of
Okay.
like I think we touched on this in the last time we spoke actually, but they're only like 8 songs, and I kind of make a majority of them out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
So I feel like it just makes more sense like to call it a tape. I feel like album connotes like this kind of sense of like, oh, it's this grand thing. Like there's a bunch of people working on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is just something cool I made in my room and just
Yeah.
thought like
For
people would
sure.
enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Silhouettes, and almost a year ago, like to the date almost, we talked
Yeah.
about your last tape. What would you say has been the major difference between that tape and this one in terms of whether it be like, technical elements or just lyrically?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I think honestly, across the board, there was a decent amount of changes this time around.
Yeah.
Um, so like first off, I think both of my projects that I put out before Silhouettes were very like I think like kind of concise in terms of vibe or aesthetic, but for this one I really wanted to do that in the sense that other than one song, it's like all live instrumentation across the board. So it's like live drums, live guitars that were recorded. And I wanted it to have like a way more like not necessarily acoustic because there's still synths and there's still electronic production involved, but like it's so much more live instrumentation, and I wanted that to be like a focus on this project specifically. Um, and then apart from that, I want to say like one of the biggest areas that I've like changed my process since the last project is honestly engineering. Like I think I got way better at engineering since the last project. I spent a few months just like fucking around with like different plugins and different types of delays or whatever the hell for my vocals. And I think I really kind of started to get it down, especially the third time around. So for this one, I think that was like a big kind of noticeable shift. Personally for me at least. So writing, I guess, and then just like the general like aesthetic of the sounds you would hear, I guess,
Yeah,
is what
for
I was
sure.
going for. Yeah.
And for you, for a little bit, you were working at a studio. Do you think that kind of helped in terms of the engineering of this tape?
Yeah, 100%. I worked with a few different people, and I think it kind of put it into perspective for me. I love like making my vocals like super wet. So
Mm.
like a lot of reverb, like having them really blend into the mix a lot, like on the production.
Yeah.
And that's great and all, but I noticed that on a few songs in particular, I just did it too much in the past.
Yeah.
So this time I took a step back and I was like, let me try to make they're still not raw, obviously. Like I'm doing my things to them. Like I'm adding compression and EQ and all these things. But like I wanted the lead vocals, like the primary vocals to sound much more like I wanted them to cut through the mix a little bit more. So a little bit more dry and less like not as like spaced out and like blended into everything else. That's definitely something that I picked up on, and I really tried to like incorporate it throughout this project, like make the lead vocals like really cut through and like hit hard. You know what I mean? And I don't think I would have learned that if I hadn't spent time with different people in the room and just seeing like not only getting their feedback on my shit that I would play them and show them, but also just hearing the stuff that they were working on. I was like, oh, I can understand why you would bring this up as like a point when you hear my stuff, you
Yeah.
know? So I
Well,
think that was a big one.
yeah, and I think there's definitely something to be said for being in kind of that more of like a, I don't know if you would say like a team setting, but like, more than just you get those outside
Yeah.
opinions and those outside influences and stuff. So you get like a wider variety of like what you can implement and stuff like that. And I think also too, you mentioned that you worked on your lyrics and stuff. So it's, you're working hard on those lyrics. You want people to be able to like hear them and you want like that to stand out as well, in addition to
Exactly.
all the melodies and stuff like that. So cool.
Yeah.
Is there a song off the tape that sticks out to you, like that was the most technically challenging?
Technically challenging, I want to say either On My Knees, which is track 6, I think,
Yeah.
or Rain, which was like the second single I put out for it. It's the last song on the project. Those are probably the most difficult for me because those are also like the first songs that I've put out on a project at least that I helped produce as well. So normally I handle like the writing, engineering, the recording, all that stuff. But like my production I get from, just producers that I've met over the years or just if I like their sound. Um, but this time I like kind of went in deep myself and kind of got my hands dirty with the production a little bit more in the sense that like I would rearrange the stems on certain beats or like change the kicks or do whatever. And I did that specifically for Rain and On My Knees because that's not really my strong suit or my forte or what I normally do. It just took me a while to like
Yeah.
really get it down and I'd have to send like the mix over to like a friend who's a producer and be like, "Yo, like do my kicks sound like shit on this or like what can I do to make them like hit harder this that and the third." So I think that those two in particular were probably the most challenging because I had to also get in my producer bag a little bit, and I
Yeah.
don't usually ever do that. But
So
I think it turned out fucking great. Thank God for my friends who like told me like they didn't like fix it for me, but they would at least point out, hey, this, and this is wrong. Go
yeah.
in and like mess with it until it sounds better. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't like the songs wouldn't have sounded the same without them. So
Well, if you want to
I
shout
think
them out,
that
you can.
yeah, man. Shout out Caleb. He's an engineer and producer out here in New York. I met him through a mutual friend. I'm gonna send this to him after we're done talking because it's just funny. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have On My Knees in particular. That's he helped me like figure out what I was doing with the kicks on there. Um, yeah, like the song would not have sounded nearly as good if it weren't for him. So thank you to him for that. Rain too though. Like I remember I had to just like change. I think, well, I did something with the intro. Honestly, it's been such a long time, but those are the two that I've like produced on this time. So I would say those, like in terms of most challenging, because it
Yeah.
was just something I hadn't done before.
Right. And I mean, I guess it's nice you don't really have like a time crunch, so to speak, so you can really like take your time to like get it down pat and like have it perfect and how you want it. So I think that's
Yeah,
super cool and it turned out super well as well. So are
thank you.
those the first two songs that you've released like on DSPs that you produce like you did like most of the production for? Or are there other songs that you've kind of dabbled in?
There was one other song that almost made the cut for this project. It's the last song I put out before I started releasing singles for it. It's called "Don't Pray for Me." Um, I wanted to put that on here, and I also kind of produced on that too. I didn't change any of the actual like elements of the beat. Like I didn't change the 808s or the kicks or anything, but I rearranged like all the stems. So I just restructured the whole beat into a version that I felt like would fit for a song for me. Because the structure of it when I first got it was a little bit weird. Like there was one chorus and like a verse that was 2 minutes long, and then like an outro, and I was like, this isn't my normal style. So let me like get the stems for this and rearrange it and add a
Yeah.
third, second, and third chorus, split them up with some verses. I did it on that but it just didn't end up making the cut for the project because I didn't think it fit like sonically with everything else, just like aesthetically.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but those are like the only three that I've ever done it on. Every time before I put out a song that I produce on, I'm like extra paranoid about it because I'm just like, oh, what if like somebody out there who's a producer notices that I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I was kind of just trying to finesse it and make it work really quick just so everyone else can enjoy it. But at a certain point, I realized that I'm just in my head about things like that, and I should
Yeah.
just
No, I mean
yeah.
it's hard when you're in it, you kind of have to like take a step back and like big picture of like, okay, like we're
Yeah.
good.
No, that's because like a lot of the songs on this project, there's like 30 different mixes of them. And like one
Yeah.
of them is just like, oh, this guitar is like zero point 0.1 decibels louder than on the other mix. Like, is it better? Will people notice? And like that was something that I think I got caught up in the loop of while I was making this too. Not to go off on a tangent,
No,
but
you're good.
there were periods where I would just be like tweaking like things to such a small degree that like I couldn't even hear the difference, but I was tricking myself into thinking I could hear the difference. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
being like, oh, people are gonna hate this version if like yeah, that was just me.
You're like,
But
it's like
like,
one little like sound in the background, and you're like,
yeah,
yeah,
literally, like hyper fixating on it and being like, oh, if this doesn't have like slightly more volume on it, the whole song is ruined. But it's
yeah.
just not the case. Yeah,
Um, so how long in total would you say it took you to make it?
I want to say when did I start making? I probably like 6 months. I want
Okay,
to say maybe a little over 5 months. Not every song that I made for it ended up making the cut. I probably made like 20 songs total,
okay, yeah.
25
I remember,
recorded.
yeah, I remember
Yeah.
from last time that you like basically would just like crank out a song like every like day or every other day. You were like making a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. So
Whenever I like sit down to make one, like I don't let myself like get up until it's like done. You know what I mean? So they stack up over time and I just go back and try to organize them and pick them in a way that I think sounds like, kind of cohesive if I'm making a project. I probably made like I was saying, like 20 something for this one, just recorded. I wrote a bunch more out of this one, but
yeah,
yeah, it's just really just making a shit ton and then picking the best of the batch
yeah.
every
Is
time.
there
Yeah.
when you're choosing either like a single or just simply like what goes on the tape, is there a specific like thought process that you have now when choosing what you think would be
Mm.
strongest?
Honestly, I think it's still the exact same as it was when I started making these projects. I just like I have a habit of whenever I make something that I don't hate on first listen, being like, "Oh, I need to like put this out like immediately." Like the first
Uh-huh.
thing I want to do is put it out. Um, I think really what it was just a matter of like giving all the songs time to sit because I do have that kind of sense of recency bias anytime I record something.
Yeah,
And looking back on it after a few months, like I said, it took me about like 5 to like make everything. So after a few months, I think there was enough time for everything to kind of sit there and for me to digest it to like decide, oh, this one makes me feel like this one makes me feel like this. I think at the end of the day, when I'm like really deciding what I'm gonna put out, is just whether or not like when I listen back to the song, it makes me want to like move or like dance or some shit,
yeah,
or if like it just makes me feel some kind of visceral kind of reaction. Because at the end of the day, my goal is to make the people who listen to my shit like feel like something. Whether or not they like what they feel is like a different fucking story, right? But it's
yeah,
just as long as I can get someone to attach some kind of like emotion or memory or whatever it is to what they just heard, then I
yeah,
feel like I did my job right. So
yeah,
that's really usually what it is does this make me feel something like intense or does it make me want to move around and just like have a good
yeah,
time? That's really it, I think. But it takes me, like I said, a few weeks to get to the point where I think I have a good like sense of judgment for that. Because when I first make something, like I said, if I don't think it's trash and I think like, oh, this isn't too bad, when I first listen back to it, my mind immediately goes to like drop it like right now.
yeah,
But I always kind of have to pull the reins back and be like, okay, like you're probably gonna make something you like more in like a week or two when you sit down again. Like don't rush the shit and
yeah.
like wait. It's all about timing for me, really. But going back to your initial question, I think it's just like if it makes me feel something, or if I can like if when I put it on, like I just want to move to it,
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think on this song and on your previous tape too, there's definitely like at least like I want to say almost half like the tape that's like you're like, yeah, I could like put this on and dance to it. Like which is like interesting because I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Like it's cool how it's not like your typical like it's not your typical beats or like stuff like that, but then it still makes you want to dance. I don't know, it's interesting. Um
I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah,
No, but I was talking about this the other day. My next like the next time I put out a project, I want it to be like something that doubles down on that.
yeah.
So like I want to make something that's gonna get like crowds like moshing.
Okay.
I don't think any of my music has that right now. I can totally see myself like performing some of these songs in front of a crowd, but I want to make something that's just gonna make people like lose their shit like
Yeah.
in a crowd. Not that I like perform as of right now either, but I want to start building towards that. Like
So would
when
you
I go out on a show, like some like really like hype shit and just get everyone in the crowd like
yeah,
jumping.
yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say like in the back of your head, you're always kind of thinking about like how would people respond to this live? Like where do you picture,
Especially recently.
yeah,
Yeah,
would like
definitely recently.
where do you picture like people like listening to it, or like in what settings would you say with this tape?
For this tape, I don't know, man. Like when I listen to something like Rain or like I was talking about On My Knees earlier,
Hmm.
I think of like being in front of like literally like hundreds, if not like a couple thousand people just like belting my shit into a
Yeah.
mic. That's like what like comes to mind. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I
I get it.
see in the future. That's what I saw when I was making them. I was like, this is some shit that I feel like I could someday like perform at a stadium and it would sound like good.
Yeah. Those
That's really,
big
yeah,
choruses. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Do you,
I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I have this thing where like the idea of performing for like a small, like kind of intimate
yeah.
venue with like 15 people is so much like more nerve-wracking to me
Yeah.
than being in front of like 3,000 people because you can't like focus on like a single one of them if there's that many. But
Yeah.
if there's like 10 and one of the people in the crowd isn't feeling the shit that you're performing, like they stick out like a sore thumb. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And you're just gonna be there in your head about it the whole time, like, oh, am I not doing good enough for this one person? If it's just like a sea of people, like for me, like in my mind, that just means like, all right, this shit doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
someone out there is gonna enjoy this shit. There's so many people,
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
here, I think honestly, like with that, I think a lot of it too depends on kind of like setting. Because if you're playing, like some like opening slot at 9 a.m. for some like local fair, where it's like,
Yeah.
everyone's walking by, like no one's paying attention, or the people that are, it's like two people. I think there's a difference between that type of small show, and then like, um, where I went to school, there's like a pretty big like house scene. So there'll be like house shows, which are like, small shows, but it's like,
Hmm.
100, 200 people like packed in there like sardines, and everyone's there
Yeah.
with the intention of like being open to music and different types of music and like hyping up the bands. So I think that's like
Yeah.
definitely a lot more of like a responsive crowd. So I think, I mean, I don't know what it's like at your school, but I think if you wanted like practice or experience in that sort of setting, I think that would be a lot less nerve wracking than like, something that, maybe you're hired to do, but is less like
Yeah. No, I
consistent
agree with
flow of
you. I
people.
those little shows where there's like 300 people, because I've been with you, there's like they're fun as hell. Like
Yeah.
they're awesome. And all the people that tend to go to that kind of stuff, I feel like especially when it's like small enough to be pulling like just a crowd of a couple hundred people, they tend to be people who really give a shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So when they're there to like have a good time. So
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I could totally see myself also doing that, I guess. Just like couple hundred, like 100, 200 people in like a tiny ass venue where it just looks huge because of how small it is
Yeah.
and how many people are crowded in there. Yeah, I think that's really what it is for me. A lot of it's just like the visual component of it. Like I
Yeah.
just need to know that there's like a
Right.
crowd, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that will make me feel more at home. And I don't know why I feel that way, but
Yeah.
I just think it would work. I remember growing up, I always hated presentations like in school. I think it's something to do with that. Like
Something
I'm
to do.
sure I always had an easier time presenting if I was like some project or some shit if I was in like an auditorium
Yeah.
versus I was in like my class just in
Yeah.
front of like students. But I don't know what the psychology behind that is.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate too. I think at some point you'll just have to rip the band-aid off, and you'll it'll become like second nature. Um
Yeah. Also
so
that, yeah, kind of like what you're saying. Practice, like I'm obviously gonna be nervous as hell, like when I start like getting into that. But
yeah.
after I get it down a few times, like I feel like it's gonna become second nature weirdly. Like I don't have any worries about that weirdly. I think I'm definitely gonna be need to learn the ropes the first few times, but I think I'm gonna get the hang of it pretty quick.
Right. Well, and I think, there's a lot of decisions to make too with like structuring a live show because it's like, do you want to have a band right from the get-go? Do you want to have,
Yeah.
just like someone working the sound for you, like a mix of both, so it's a lot of decisions and stuff, but I think, you know, with your knowledge of like engineering and stuff like that, I think you'll be able to figure it out no problem. So,
We'll
um
find a way to make it work.
yeah. Do you have a favorite song off the album, or is that like choosing children?
A lot of people say that, but nah, I definitely do have a favorite. I think it's probably Rain, to be honest.
Okay.
I think that's my favorite song. I remember like I didn't even have like a plan to make that song on the day that I made it. Like I was feeling like super anxious that day and I didn't know how to like manage it in a healthy way. So I just like booked like a empty room at a studio here in Brooklyn. Like no engineer, nothing, just like an empty room.
Uh-huh.
And I like booked the room for like I want to say 9 hours or something like that. And I went in there and like kind of just made it on the spot. So I think I had written like the chorus for it a few months back, not knowing if it was going to be a chorus for anything. And I just found it on my notes app and I was like, I'm going to make like a song built around this. And
Yeah.
then that's how it happened. And people love that one so far. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people tell me that that's like their favorite song by me. So it's funny to me that I feel like that happens so often is like the song that like is planned the least or like
Yeah.
the song that you put the least amount of time into will weirdly a lot of the times end up being like your personal favorite or a lot of like people's personal favorite, even though there might be other songs on like the project that I spent like so much more time on, like conceptualizing or engineering or whatever it might be, you know?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. And I think,
Definitely that one though.
yeah, I think that's kind of same to be said for like, and I'm experiencing this a lot of like social media and like performance,
Yeah,
like posts.
I've heard that there too. It's like never what you expect.
Yeah, like I like Rain. I think Dead Men Walking and what's the other one? Show Her Crazy. I think those are probably my faves.
Oh yeah, people like Show Her Crazy a lot. Dead Man Walking was a fun one too. I forgot like the story for that one. I guess weirdly, I'll say I was working this job over the summer. I'm not gonna say where, just for
Okay,
privacy
yeah,
purposes.
for
But I
sure.
was working this job. I remember taking a like a bathroom break. I heard the beat while I was at my like just at my spot, and then I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom. I sat down like in the stall and just wrote the song in like 15 minutes in the bathroom stall at my work. And then I was like, this is actually like pretty cool. And so I just like left like that same like minute. Like I just walked right out of the stall and went to the studio and I made it. I just dipped out on work.
You're
They
like,
didn't
wow.
love me at that job. I don't work there anymore, but
You're like, I don't feel well. I'm gonna head out.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, really, I was like, I need to record this like right now. And I ended up turning out like great. I made that one I think I might have misspoke. I didn't even go to the studio. Like I just came right back home and like recorded that shit in my bed. Like I just got my laptop and my mic and made it in bed.
oh yeah,
But
that's awesome.
yeah,
Oh, I'm curious. So you put a question sticker up on your Instagram like a couple days ago or what have you, and you mentioned that I believe it was Starstruck. You're sick of that song. So
yeah, man.
in in what ways like does it take like what does it take for you to get sick of a song that you've made or like move on from a specific style?
I think it's a mixture of time and how many like times I've heard it.
Okay.
Um, Starstruck, for example, I was how old? I was either 16 or 17 when I made that. I want to say it was 17. Or I might have just turned 17, but it's been years since then, and I'm like,
Yeah.
people still love that song, and I'm so happy that they do. Don't get me wrong, but like, I can't listen to it anymore. Like, I'm not the same. I feel like I don't write in the same way that I did back then.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't write in the same way. I don't have the same like preference for like production either that I did back then. It's still very like I mean, you can hear that it comes from kind of like the same, like the music I'm making now still sounds like the same artist, I feel like, but
Yeah.
I've just like changed my preferences for production since then, I think. And
Yeah.
I've changed my writing style. Um, I just don't think it's like me now, and I think
Yeah.
that's the reason that I don't like it as much, to be honest.
That makes sense.
Also, like I said, how many times I've heard it. Like
Yeah.
at a certain point, like I can keep putting songs out that I love, and if people keep DMing me still, regardless, like, hey, your new shit's great, but like Starstruck, at a certain point, I'm like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
listen to like some of my other shit, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
It's
again, I'm so thankful that there's even someone out there that like gives a shit to begin with. It's
yeah.
just that's just me being like a stickler.
Yeah, no, I get that. And yeah, that is kind of, I guess, the trick with, the internet being forever and music being put out there forever, right? Is like someone new will always stumble across, whatever it is that you have that's out that may be older, but um
Yeah. Yeah, I have to keep that in mind. It's like for the people DMing me about this song isn't like 3 years old to them. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
they might have just found it yesterday. So
yeah, absolutely. Well,
that's
cool.
something I have to focus on remembering.
Yeah, for sure. So Silhouettes out now, and you got the other two tapes that you have out, all the
Hmm.
all the old stuff from 4 years ago that people can
Yeah,
check out if you want.
it's
Um,
all there, man. It's
all
still
the
all there. I got stuff on SoundCloud too that isn't even on like Spotify.
yeah.
So like there's shit.
Well, so you're you keep the stuff on there. Would you say that Starstruck was the one that kind of like was one of the first songs that got like a lot of attention around it? Is that part of it?
1 billion%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all the songs that I had out before that were like maxing out at maybe like 100 plays on
Okay.
SoundCloud, and a lot of them were like me and my best friend in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but then that one really kind of changed everything for me and kind of gave me like the first little push to make me think like, oh, like I should keep doing this.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there's been a few songs since then that people have resonated with too. But
Yeah.
like that was, yeah, kind of like you were saying, that's definitely like the first like thing. That was the fourth song like I ever put out. So it was kind of encouraging in that regard. Is like, oh,
Yeah.
like it didn't take that long for you to get some kind of positive reception. So just keep
Yeah.
going and see what people think.
Absolutely. And I guess technically when you started making music, that was before the whole like TikTok era and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of crazy.
It was I probably like I think I started releasing maybe around like a year before TikTok really started like
Yeah. That's kind of crazy to
going up.
think
Yeah.
about, right? Like the artists that were pre
Yeah.
TikTok and the artists that are like, during. It's interesting just
Yeah.
you like the way that promotion has like changed just like through
It's
reels
so
and
different
through
now.
TikTok. It's
Yeah.
crazy to even like think about. It's like, oh my gosh, like how did people like find music before before TikTok? It's
Word of
crazy.
mouth, I guess.
Yeah. Or like
Yeah, it is funny to look back, or like the radio or YouTube, or I
yeah.
don't know, but yeah, I get, or just like the occasional meme too. But
Yeah.
now, like the turnover rate because of TikTok is so fast, man.
Oh my
Like
God.
there's like a new like TikTok hit, I feel like every 3 days,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
It's
Yeah.
it's a lot faster, and I think like I'm not on TikTok, so I feel like I'm constantly playing catch up of like what's the new sound or like what's the
Yeah. That too. That's true. I don't have TikTok either, so I'll like hear a song and like be like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." Come to find out that like the couple of friends I have that do have TikTok have known about this shit for like weeks, if not
oh, I
months, and
know.
they're like, "You're late to the train." So it's like I don't have it though. I had to delete it because I just would waste too much time on it when I first
Yeah.
got it, and also I don't know. A lot of people tell me that I'm like tripping or like missing out because I don't
I get that.
promote my shit on TikTok. They're
Yeah.
like, you could get so many more like ears on your shit if you just promote like posted videos, but it feels like so unnatural to me to just like
Yeah.
set my phone up and either make like a meme or like some dance or like whatever and be like, make sure you like pre-save this song. Like
I know.
I'd rather just like drop the song, you know what I mean? And if people like it, they like it, and then like we'll see where it goes from there. But
Yeah.
that's just not for me, man.
Silhouettes out now everywhere. You can stream it. Anything else, still Harley, before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I guess like yeah, shameless plug.
Yeah.
Silhouettes is out everywhere now. Go fucking get that. I'm gonna get back to dropping singles like I wanted to after the last project, but this one ended up just coming out so quick. This time I'm not lying. I'm gonna get back to putting singles out.
Yeah,
So
and I think, for those listening, if you're looking for an artist that consistently puts out songs and they're fire songs every time, and you're like not if you're not trying to wait like a super long time for the next single, still Harley's where it's at.
appreciate the love. That means the world.
So where can everyone follow you?
Um, Really just Instagram. I would have said Twitter if it was a few months ago, but now that it's like that X shit, I honestly
MMS.
don't use it as much anymore. Yeah. So Instagram
Are you on the
and
threads?
Spotify, SoundCloud. Oh, Threads. I was for like the first 3 days, and
I,
then I
I
forgot that it exists,
I feel
man.
like it kind of died, which is kind of unfortunate because I did kind of like it a little bit. Um,
Really? Yeah. I mean,
I like
that's I
this
was talking about this
because
too.
like
It's like
storytelling.
Instagram's. Yeah, that's true. At the end of the day though, it annoyed me. I feel like because it's just Instagram like stealing it like everybody's swag again. Like
Yes,
they stole
yes,
the stories from Snapchat, they
it's
stole the
true.
reels from TikTok, and now they stole the threads from like Twitter. They're just like the Infinity Stones all into
Yes,
like one fucking like yeah. I get it. It's like the hub for everything now. I feel like that's why it's the only platform that I'm still active on.
yeah.
But like I completely forgot that threads existed if I'm being honest with you.
Are you on YouTube as well?
I am, but it's really just audio for
Okay.
now for my music. I was there is some shit in the works. I'm working on a visualizer and I want to get a music video done for I haven't decided yet, but I think what it's gonna end up being is likely Dead Man Walking.
Cool.
Those are being worked on. I forgot to bring that up, but I feel
Okay.
like people might be interested to know. There's gonna be visuals for this project too.
Cool.
So um, yeah, I guess
Okay.
follow me on Instagram if you're looking for anywhere to follow me though.
Great. Thank you. And this has been Music Mukbang. Thank you so much for coming on. It was nice getting to chat with you again.
Of course, I appreciate y'all.